A couple things I really love: American-made products and bow hunting. When you can put the two together, it just makes sense. It's a great combination, especially for me. I love this Easton Archery 6.5 bow hunter arrow. I've been pulling that thing back for a long time with this arrow and send them flying all over the place. So, guys, Easton Archery is a great partner for the Western Huntsman. It fits our values. It fits everything that we believe in. And American manufacturing is back, and it's ready to take over again like it used to be and how it should be. Whether it's hunting arrows, target arrows, components, stabilizers, accessories, you can shop it all, build your own arrows, whatever you want to do. Check it all out at eastonarchery.com for a full lineup, or check out your local retailer because they're probably going to have them too. Again, check it out, eastonarchery.com. Love these guys. I've been sporting this Browning X-Bolt, guys, and I got to tell you, I've been really happy with it. They even have now the X-Bolt 2, the Browning X-Bolt 2. This is this stuff. I'm always, if you're in the market, it's always cool because I get listeners that they like write in and they're like, hey, I'm in the market for this, I'm in the market for that. One of the most common things is a rifle. Like, what rifle do you recommend? And I don't know why they'd ask for my advice, but if you are, you can experience total accuracy with the X-Bolt 2. This Veritech stock is like adjustable. That's a really important feature with any rifle. So if you're longer or shorter than somebody else, you can adjust that stock. I love the DLX trigger. I love the weight. I love how smooth the action is on this rifle. You cannot go wrong with the Browning X-Bolt 2. It's legitimately a step up from like these over-the-counter type rifles. If you're going to stick to that over-the-counter rifle lineup, the Browning X-Bolt really deserves a second look and serious consideration because it's not going to let you down. I absolutely love both of mine. Check them out at browning.com.
There exists a threat, from anti-hunting groups to politicians trying to give our land away, and we won't stand for it. Those vast western landscapes provide the space for our wildlife to thrive and a place for hunters and anglers to fuel the fire that sparks their soul. In this show, we share our love of hunting, fishing, and conservation. Here, we provide the foundation to meet these threats through passion and the grit of the American outdoorsman. Welcome to the Western Huntsman Podcast.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this episode of the Western Huntsman Podcast. This is Jim Huntsman, your host, coming at you from the Broken Time studio right here in Northwest Montana, brought to you by Eastman's Hunting Journals. And we are joined by Eastman's Hunting Journals right there in Powell, Wyoming. My good buddy, Dan Pickar, a fan favorite, a return guest, one of the champion School of September downloaded episodes ever, and just a good all-around dude. Dan, I appreciate you joining me. How you doing, brother?
I'm great. Good to hear your voice again. You get me fired up just talking about coming on here again. So it's good to be back.
I always like having you on, man. You're like one of the most unafraid people to just come on and just speak your mind. And I think that not only is that just authentic in itself, it's something that is like severely lacking in today's society, where everybody's just afraid to say what's on their mind. They're like afraid to, hurt their neighbor's feelings or whatever. And I think that that's not like lying in itself, but it's being dishonest. And I just appreciate your authenticity on that part of it. So thanks for coming on, man.
Absolutely. At any chance I can to, come on and talk some more unfiltered and uncensored, and it's nice to speak your mind every once in a while. I know a lot of time, and whether you're writing an article for EBJ or producing bow hunting content, it's not the place of the time to get political. So I am a political person, and wildlife management is all politics. And so I like to just kind of get on here sometimes and get fired up with Jim. I love it.
Well, it's interesting you say that too. I'd love to get your take on, obviously with my show, we've dove into lots of, hot topic political type issues and whatnot. And I'll get these messages either on Instagram or email or whatever, where people are like, hey, I listen to this because it's a hunting show. I don't want to hear politics and whatever. And that's a very small percentage, but it's still
enough that I think that people confuse the purpose when we're talking about saving the future of hunting and our conservation efforts and wildlife management and proper ethical use of these resources. You can't talk about that without the political aspect of it. So what do you say to somebody that's like, well, you're a hunting platform. Why are you talking politics? What's your reaction to that?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And I would say somebody that brings up that point, I get where they're coming from, because it's nice to have a break from the flamboyant, crazy politics that we have and that we see on social media and every other platform this day and age. But the reality of it is that wildlife management is political. It's just the name of the game. And to say otherwise is just plain irresponsible, and you're in denial. Yeah, it's just the bottom line.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's a great way to put it. Denial is a great way to put it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I always like to, I mean, again, I'll go right into rocking the boat. We're going to talk about this initiative petition 28 that's coming out of Oregon, often referred to as the Peace Act, which is funny. Peace standing for People for the Elimination of Animal Cruelty Exemptions. So we're going to kind of dive into this crazed leftist fantasy thing that they're trying to push, which has a surprising amount of signatures out of Oregon. But I mean, that's just a couple of city blocks in downtown Portland, so it's not that concerning. But at the same time, this is the kind of stuff, like one of the things that I've been talking about lately when it comes to this kind of fight that we're up against with the animal activists, these activism groups out there that are, whether it's PETA or Humane Society of the United States or this particular group. I can't remember. There's a name for this group that is trying to push this in Oregon. I'll find that later. But some of them are hostile vegans. Some of them are just, bored with their life and want to feel like they're doing something good. Others are confused as to the reasons why wolves belong or don't belong on certain landscapes, or grizzly bears, for example. All of these folks, these groups, these activism organizations that kind of, in my opinion, they're developed to generate revenue. And I think that's the bottom line, what they're looking to do. They don't actually want to solve problems. Like if you looked at what PETA has done for wildlife, it's just, it's non-existent. They really haven't done anything of note. And so the point I'm trying to make is when I'm looking at this second screen here, my second screen here, but when you look at these groups, these activist groups, these are the symptoms. Left-wing liberalism is the actual disease. That's where this is all derivative from. And I want people to understand that from I'm not talking about your normal American Democrat or whatever, because people, I have Democrats that listen that are normal Americans that still go hunting and love America and stuff. I'm talking about the left-wing extremists, these liberal nut jobs that don't know what bathroom to use or what color their hair is that day, and all these things that create this chaotic, angry lifestyle that is liberalism. And that's where all this kind of stuff derives from. That's my opinion. I just came up with that monologue off the top of my head there, buddy. So what's your reaction to that?
No, I think you're right. And I think what it stems from, Jim, is that modern life has become too easy. And when modern life becomes too easy, people tend to start creating problems for themselves. That's just the nature. It's sin nature, right? It goes back, I believe, to Adam and Eve. And these people that maybe they're products of their environment. So they've been raised in these environments. Maybe they got what they wanted all the time. Maybe they're just spoiled kid or whatever that got what they wanted. And it's kind of like their way or the highway. And they begin, because they've been in this, what I would consider an alternate reality. It's not reality. It's not how normal life works. It's not how society works. But they become so untouched with reality that they start creating these problems and starting to try to tell us how to live our lives. And for like you and me, we're too busy with life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, living in the United States, right? We enjoy our freedoms. We're doing what we love. We're providing for our families. We're working an honest day's work, and then we're doing what hobbies that we love. And I would say that's kind of like normal living, right? And
Absolutely.
and so these people, they're they're more interested in trying to tell us what to do and how to live, and that we should adopt their way of thinking and their activities or their hobbies or whatever the case might be. And so fundamentally, I think that's why you're not going to change the mind of these people, is because they're not wired like a normal person. And this is like my opinion. And it's like you said, it's the people that don't know what gender they are or their friends are, and they don't know what color their hair is, and they don't know. Have you heard the term Furbies? Like they're trying to be animals and stuff.
Yeah, super odd, man. I
Yeah,
don't understand.
it's this very bizarre alternate behavior that it's like where they're trying to, in their minds, they're trying to justify fantasy as being reality. And so I don't know if it's just from, I'm sure it is, childhood trauma and living in this fantasy world, but it's become a disease. It's a mental health crisis in the United States, and I think that's fundamentally what's going on here.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think that when you look at this as like a mental, I mean, there's no doubt about it, man. There is a mental issue going on from a standpoint. Like if you think about back when I was a kid, the adults were focused on protecting their family, making a living, paying the mortgage, hunting season, tangible things. They weren't sitting around on social media all day worried about what a bunch of leftists were doing in San Francisco, because we were kind of disconnected back then before all that. And so I think that having all these different, these different pursuits in terms of lifestyle and exposing that to everybody is like inflaming it. Like back then somebody could be gay and they lived this quiet gay lifestyle, right?
Yeah.
Nowadays it's like, oh, I'm gay and now I've got social media and I want to make it my entire identity, and here I'm going to post about it and you better like it or you're a dadgum bigot. And I think that that's just been exacerbated by social media and this need to feel important and this need to feel a voice, where everything in life in America is so easy. In Europe, these other places in Europe is so easy that we have to find an adversary. We have to find, it's just like human nature. We have to find these enemies. And it used to be that we were all united as Americans. And, you could have this, like I was born in the year 1980. That was the election year for Jimmy Carter and Ronald Reagan, right? So back in that time, you could have like this respect and gratitude and appreciation for Jimmy Carter, but walk into the voting booth and still vote for Ronald Reagan. It wasn't like it is today, where things are so far one way and so far the other. And this whole diversity is our strengths. And so we bring in these goat humping jihadists that want to come in and infiltrate our society and try to act like they're this religion of peace. Yeah, and I don't want to get us off on this topic, but I got to say, like, Islam is not a religion. It's a political ideology that is out to get us. They say it. They tell us. And so this whole diversity is our strength thing is nurturing this infighting because, again, going back to humans need by nature some kind of adversary, and they need to feel part of this tribe and have this place to feel a belonging. And like transgenderism, for example, that's a good place for somebody that doesn't have any belonging to find some belonging and meeting and to voice an adversarial opinion against those that are against them. So it just breeds this thing that we're in now. And now we've got people that are attaching themselves to IP 28, Initiative Petition 28 in Oregon. So, and essentially what this does, for those of you listening, it would fundamentally eliminate hunting, fishing, trapping, ranching. We mentioned breeding of horses, anything that they consider abuse of animals, which is basically anything that humans can do. And maybe you have some more information on this thing, but it's where we're looking at it, we're with Eastman. So we're looking at this thing where it's like, okay, they're trying to eliminate hunting in the state of Oregon, but it's a whole plethora of things: livestock farming, wildlife management practices, all that stuff would go away. Is there anything I'm missing on that?
Not really. No, I mean, I think that kind of covers it. And they tried to attack this. I mean, it's the Western way of life, right? They tried to attack it in 2021 or 2022, whenever it was, and it got shot down. But yeah, basically, like, yeah, keeping chickens and raising chickens for the production of eggs would become illegal.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, you're spot on.
And there, I mean, this thing is obviously, it's not rooted in reality. Like a lot of things that come out of the left, it's just not rooted in reality. This is when I can't remember, what is that statistic? It's like less than 5% of the population are like vegan. Let me look that up. So
yeah, it's probably 2%.
Well, what's funny, about, I can't type and talk at the same time, so bear with me. There we go. What's funny is that it's estimated approximately 1 to 2% of the population are vegan. So what's funny about that is that never changes over the years. It's like veganism isn't growing and it's not losing, because what happens is the average vegan is a vegan for about 2 years, and then the health effects kind of start taking over, and it's really difficult to stay healthy as a vegan, despite the arguments that they make. And so it's only the real diehards that stay on this diet. But the diehards that stay on this diet need to justify their life, their stance, their difficulty maintaining proper nourishment. And so they become activists. They become extremists because they feel like nobody's listening. So that 2%, it stays at 2% because, 2 years, one guy, he gets off, he's going back to eating chicken fried steak. And then the next guy's like, I'm going to be a vegan. And it just like tit for tat, stays right at that level. It's a weird ideology, but they've turned it into, it's not like a dietary choice anymore. It's like a political ideology. And now they're trying to shove it down everybody's throat with IP28.
Yeah. Yeah.
But,
no, and I think what's the most alarming to me with like this IP28, because it sounds so bizarre, right? It sounds so far-fetched and so crazy, but what it is, and we've seen this with society, is they pitch these ideas, they pitch this extreme concept of what animal abuse is, because they want it to become palatable, right? Like people were like, oh, that's crazy, but all of a sudden, and then you start settling for less, and it doesn't seem so bad, right? And so they're softening society. And, mark my words on this, Jim, next, after, wanting to allow men into women's bathrooms and all this other stuff, the next step will be normalizing and legalizing child molestation and child pornography. And it won't stop. The craziness, the bizarreness won't stop. So that will be the next step of what they're going to try to do in the future with softening society, because these are people that want American society to fail. So that's where it's alarming to me, is that they come up with this bizarre stuff, and then, we're dealing with it, we're talking about it, and then we settle for less, and we're like, oh, that's not so bad. Whereas what we're settling for is actually horrible, and it's very, very far away from traditional American values. So that's the problem I see with modern progression in civilization and in this social media age.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great point, man. They've already started to try to normalize this pedophilia, ideology or practice, whatever you want to call it. And again, not to keep bringing Islam into it, but that's been normal for them for, I don't know how many years,
right?
For a long time. It's just part of their political ideology. And so, when you start bringing things like that that are so far from the common American values. The American political system and our constitutional framing is, these are all biblical principles. And so these are Christian biblical principles that we put into a political document to govern our nation. And you can't maintain that without living by those biblical principles. And so when you start bringing people that don't share those values, which is why in the countries that they're leaving these poverty-stricken countries that don't have the quality of life that we do in the West, because they allow that political ideology that is so destructive to mankind to run their lives. But they want to, and everybody's like, I mentioned this at one point. I did like a post, and somebody in the post was like, you're an Islamophobe. Islamophobe is a made-up word by the Islamists. Like, they're sitting there telling you that they want to jihad and take you over, and then they call you an Islamophobe, and then meanwhile, they're ripping us off at the same time while they're taking over and putting up mosques everywhere. At what point do you see that? This is what I really wanted to ask you, Dan. Like, do you see this changing at all? Do you see like common people in our American society who are so distracted by the latest tic-tac trend or whatever that thing is? Do you see this ever, like people waking up to it and being like, man, we are lost as a society. We are on the wrong path. We're being invaded. We're being taken over. We're being ruled and pushed around by transgenders and Muslims and weirdos and people that want to be, Initiative IP 28 in Oregon friendly. Yeah. Do you see this changing and people waking up to it at all?
Well, I see the Trump presidency as an example of that. It's, whether you wanted to argue how palatable Trump is and his personality and whatnot, that's debatable. That's fine. But people are voting for Trump because of what the opposition is. I mean, what Kamala Harris represents, what the left represents. And so Trump is getting elected because of that right there, I believe, is what you're bringing up. That's the average person, the common person, the working American person. That's their way to combat that and combat the anti-American way of life. And like you said, I mean, we're seeing it in European countries with, the Muslims are taking over large portions of London.
Did you know that in London, Dan, the most popular name being named is Muhammad in the hospitals? That's that's the number one most common name for new births in London.
Yep.
That's insanity.
Yep. That's a great example, because that's what they're doing. That's kind of the ideology of Islam, is they're expanding, they're infiltrating societies and cultures, and then having this high level of influence on culture and on governance, whether it's city or state governance, and then basically outbreeding the people. I mean, that's mm-hmm. what they believe in, and that's what their jihad is. And so it's something that we have to be very aware about. And it's happening at different rates in different parts of the world. I know Canada is another big part, or a place where Islam is becoming very, very, I was going to say popular, but it's just becoming more and more because of immigration, and the amount of mm-hmm. mosques that are around now are unbelievable. You can't drive through Canada and not see a dome somewhere of like, yeah, that's a mosque right over there. I mean, that's just kind of Canada's norm, and many countries in Europe. And, I've talked to people from the UK that live in the city that aren't hunters, that are like, they're scared. They don't even, these are English people that are like scared because their country is being taken over, and it's happening all over Europe as well. So, so I don't know what the answer is as far as, obviously we can reject it in our local areas or live in small towns and live in these red states. And I'm not saying that I don't believe in diversity, but I I think diversity belongs to a degree, but I believe in nationalism and preservation of the American way of life, number one.
Yeah.
And yeah, you can have diversity and immigration, of course, but I think what I would like to see, Jim, is, which I know this probably won't happen, is the federal government having a little bit more of a inflection on these immigrants adopting the American way of life. Like they need to be able to come in and speak English and prove that they want to integrate into the American way of life, because that's how it works. That's how every other country in Europe or wherever, like you have to kind of conform to that culture's way of life. It's
Yeah.
not it's not come in and change the way of life. But unfortunately, with society and the leftists, that's kind of what they're allowing.
Yeah. I think to your point that you're making there, the term diversity has been hijacked. Diversity is kind of like this. It's like a racial diversity, right? I don't give a damn what somebody's skin color is. And by the way, before somebody calls me a racist over what I said about Islam, Islam is not a race. It's a political ideology. It's not even a religion. It's a political ideology. So spare me the drama, liberals. But secondly, to your point, diversity it's been hijacked from this standpoint. Like, who cares if there's, okay, we've got white people, black people, brown people, Asian people, whatever, this group. I don't care about that. Unity is our strength, and we become unity when we have shared values, shared goals, shared objectives. That's like diversity being strong does not consist of a community that has people that have complete opposite value sets. Like my neighbor, if I have a neighbor, I want that neighbor to share my belief that George Strait is the best country singer ever. General Robert E. Lee is a great general. My favorite rock band is Metallica and his is Megadeth. That's cool. We can see eye to eye on that. But at the end of the day, we like baseball. We like the American flag. We like hot dogs. We like talking about things like what the Marines did in World War II, and we have this shared history and value sets, and we love to talk about God and Jesus, and have this just a communion of like-minded people. If I can't have a shared value set or shared history or shared goal or just a basic general function of how we believe life should be formatted in a certain particular country, it is not unreasonable to ask for that. I just don't think it's unreasonable to say, hey, we'd love you to come to America. If you bring something to the table, we'd love you to come to America and assimilate to our culture and come to our 4th of July parades. Let me show you how cool George Strait is. All those things, and enjoy it. That's what we want. What we don't want is people coming here and saying that we're wrong for our way of life, and we're going to change it so that it resembles downtown Pakistan, whatever, and have the loud prayers. You know what really chaps my ass, Dan? I'll tell you what chaps my ass. Now I'm getting fired up because I'm starting to shoot all over the place. They told us when I was in Iraq, and just overseas in general with the Marines, they told us, gents, we're over here doing this now so you and your children and your grandchildren won't have to fight these people at home. Well, here it is 25 years later. And in the last week, there have been 2 Muslim-inspired terrorist attacks in the United States. What happened? What happened to that? How have we come to this? What was the point of me doing what I did so that my kids wouldn't have to worry about it today if they still have to worry about it? And not only do they have to worry about it, I'm worried that they're going to have to be worried about a complete takeover because we're getting overrun. I don't know. Maybe too deep?
Yeah, no. I mean, I think it's something that it should be taken seriously. And like we said, we've seen that frog be boiled in the UK and in Spain and in Germany and some of these other European countries where that's what's happening. And unfortunately, you know, once again, it's a slippery slope. This immigration and diversity is a slippery slope. It's a beautiful thing if it's done correctly. But
Mhm.
when, like you said, there's no assimilation and there's no structure of retaining culture, we have a problem. And
Yeah.
I think that's what America is missing wholeheartedly when it comes to immigration, is the lack of requirement of assimilation.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that would be an important starting point because again, for those of you listening, the reason why we're talking about this is because as we talk a lot on this show of wildlife management and conservation and hunting strategies, by the way, if you want some like world-class hunting tips, strategies and whatnot, you got to check out Dan and Brian Barney's Life of a Bow Hunter podcast. It's one of my favorite ones. Everything bow hunting. Dan, I just want to throw that shot. You guys do a great job on that. You got like there couldn't be two better podcast hosts for a bow hunting podcast. And
I appreciate it. Yeah,
I
appreciate it.
love listening to you guys just kind of bounce things off each other, So, but the point that I'm trying to make, we will have no place to discuss this stuff if we don't
Yeah.
defensively or just defend the foundation of this thing that we have in America. We have these exceptional things about the American, like gosh, holy cow, I'm totally drawing a blank. Wildlife management system that we have, North American model of
Yes.
wildlife conservation.
Yes.
I went blank there. That's what happens when my blood pressure gets high, man. But we have this great system, and we have this public land system, and we have this, sets of wildlife management systems across the American West, and point systems and tags and over the counter versus, limited entry. It's such a wonderful place to be, and it all goes away if we can't defend the foundational principles of our way of life as Americans.
Yeah.
It starts with, we have to defend America first, and hunting comes after that. Honestly, that's
Yeah.
kind of where there's that old saying, shit rolls downhill. Well, we're downhill of that aspect of it. Do you see that differently, or what do you think about that?
Yeah, so just think of the constituents of people that voted for Trump, right? That saved America, in my opinion, voting against the left. And then you factor in our lifestyle and the small percentage of people that probably, that truly are out hunting, that are out providing for their family. And it's a relatively small way of life, right? For us folks that are out there in nature and providing for our family. And so now the pool of strength just got a lot smaller when we're talking about just standing up for hunting, just standing up for predator management. I mean, things that you would think scientifically is pretty basic, but in a reality of chaos and absurdity, it's not. We're fighting just to manage bears. We're fighting just barely holding on enough to manage wolves, when the science is there, but also the emotion is what seems to matter when it comes to wildlife management and courts and managing predators. But that's what we have to really be aware of and take this so seriously when we see these small battles, is we got to go nip them in the bud, because we really don't have that much in our favor when it comes to us being allowed to hunt in America today and in the modern society, when you have such a massive constituent of like what happened in British Columbia with them outlawing grizzly bear hunting based on a vote. Importing wolves into Colorado based on a vote. Like, it's just absurd to me that that's even possible when it comes to a field that's considered science, and a constituent on the political spectrum that always loves to use the terminology follow the science. But yeah, they're the ones that are like, we're going to force our emotion on you and dictate rules based on emotion, yet they love to throw that terminology around. So I would like to say that.
Pardon the interruption, but let's take a quick break to hear from our sponsors. I only look for a few things when it comes to a hunting pack. And I've run a lot of different packs over the years, between my time in the military to when I was a kid running around the mountains with that Vietnam-era Army-Navy surplus one I bought, to all the packs I've had now, some very high-dollar ones to some very cheap ones. There's a lot of things I like, but the things that are important to me is it needs to be water-resistant, it needs to be good at load-bearing, it needs to, help prevent that sweat that builds up between your back and the actual pack that drives me crazy. And it needs to be functional. I like to have the proper pouches and a good belt pouch and things to set up and accommodate the way that I like to hunt. Man, I tell you what, the Mystery Ranch has achieved all those things in both packs that I have, between the Sawtooth 45 and the Sawtooth 65. You can also get the Beartooth 85 and the Marshall 105, depending on how much time you want to spend in the backcountry. I couldn't recommend this pack more. It's super functional. It's great at packing meat. It's great at packing everything that I need for the day, whether I'm guiding or if I'm just hunting. It keeps the water out. Super functional pack. Couldn't recommend them high enough. Check it out at mysteryranch.com/mysterium and let them know the Western Huntsman sent you. Thanks for listening. Thanks for those who support our sponsors. Let's get back to the show.
So that's what we have. That's, I mean, on a scale that affects us so dramatically, is just the managing predators. We got to have a country first, but we're barely able to manage predators as it is.
Why is it that you think, what do you think is going on from, because you said a couple of things that I love. The left is this giant bucket full of hypocrisy. They, again, going back to this Islamist thing, they're like, oh, we want to support transgenders and let them use whatever bathroom they want. Oh, and also my Islamist buddy here wants to jihad us, but don't say anything, because then you'll be an Islamophobe. But that jihadists would jihad that transgender. It just doesn't, dude. It's just whacked, man. There's nothing worse than these emotionally intoxicated leftists, man. It's incredulous. But anyway, when we're talking about predator management, man, I'd like to get your take. It feels like there's a lot of apathy from the hunting community that is just like, we just kind of sit silent because, I live in small town Montana. If I were just to stay in this little sphere of, influence or this little community that I live in and never venture outside of it, I would think that everybody hunts and everybody is on board with keeping the wolf population down, and everybody's on board with keeping the grizzly on the north side of the river, like we kind of do. They don't come on this side of the river very often. If I venture a 5-hour drive to the west, I'm in Seattle, Washington, where it's a completely different mindset, right? And the population is vastly so much more that I think that everybody talks about how these activist communities can get into this groupthink mentality. They all think alike and just kind of regurgitate what their neighbors are saying and whatnot, especially in these big cities. We can kind of do that too as hunters, though, right? We get to the point where we don't care that the commission has been infiltrated in the state of Washington and now they have their spring bear hunt eliminated. But hey, here in Montana, I don't care, man. I still got my spring bear hunt. But that is going to fester and grow to where we're at. Like the lady, I can't remember her name, in Colorado that is kind of heading up this pro-wolf stuff, is the same lady that was helping heading up the spring bear hunt ban. Or she's not pro-wolf. I think it's a bobcat ban. Anyway, there's so much going on, man. I can't keep up with it all. Is it, this was a very, very long way of me asking you, is it these activist groups that are able to raise the money to market their cause so much more effectively than we as hunters care to even try. Is that why we're losing ground with that?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I believe so. The opposition's very passionate, right? And we can say that they're so irrational and that they're, bozos and whatever, but they're a very passionate constituent. And what's happening is they've basically infiltrated the game management systems from the inside, and then they're able to influence game laws and management practices based on that. And it started, in my opinion, in like California with the Humane Society, right? So like that's why I'll never support the Humane Society. I don't care on a local level how good they are with cats and dogs and that stuff. I won't support them because they're tied to the National Humane Society. And these are the people that ultimately don't believe that you and I belong on the landscape, harvesting our own food and killing animals. They don't believe that we should be there. And so these are the people that have infiltrated game and fish management organizations, the departments in the states, starting in California, and we're seeing in Oregon and Washington with the spring bear season going away. And then I'm starting to call it Little California. Colorado is kind of the same thing, what we're seeing with the wacko left governor appointing these similar types of people onto the department. But that's what they're doing, a very strong constituent of infiltrating from the inside and then having their influence on game management practices moving forward. And so that's why we're seeing such an attack on predators. These people on managing predators, these people don't believe that predators should be managed. They fully believe in their little minds that man should not be involved in the management of wildlife. Nature should take care of itself. That's what they believe. That's what they think is possible. And I still see that argument by hunters is that, well, nature can take care of itself. Not really. I mean, it's existed and nature's been nature since the beginning of time. But guess what's also been involved and interacted and a part of nature since the beginning of time? Man.
Human.
Yes. Man has. And so nature is directly, it's natural for man to be involved. And you'll get people that I don't know. I think it's the Disney effect, or maybe in their little fantasy world, that they believe that man doesn't belong in the involvement of nature, but they believe they that's what they really believe. And specifically these people that believe that wolves and bears shouldn't be killed, it's because, well, they can do that. Nature has a way of taking care of itself, and nature can manage itself. And it's like, no, it can't. It's highly inefficient. It's highly brutal, cruel. It's nature, yes, and we have to embrace it to a level, but as stewards of the land, and that gets us to be like, okay, why are we even here? Why do you believe we're here, Jim? I believe we're here because God put us here, and God put us in charge of the animals, the four-footed animals and creepy crawlies of the earth, to manage them and to be stewards of them. It's in the Bible. It does not lie.
Literally states it in the Bible.
Literally states it. That's why animals are here, and that's why man is here, is to manage our wildlife. It is our duty, and it's a renewable resource. And so there's no argument. There's nothing that you can say that's not only going to convince me otherwise, but that will tell me that I don't belong on the landscape in managing our nation's wildlife. This is a renewable resource. Okay. So it's like farming. So under management, under wise practice, this is something that we can utilize, and the population on paper shouldn't necessarily have to decline because of human consumption. That's not how it's set up. But yeah, okay, there's winters, there's disease that go through, there's other things that we have to deal with and manage. But once again, it goes back to the basic foundation of ideology, and these people are so detached with reality that they have no ability to make those connections and have like a grounded thought. Like it's a
Yeah.
mental disease. So anyway,
Absolutely.
that's my
No,
soapbox.
that's great. It's great stuff, man. I mean, it kind of goes and it speaks to the point that I've made a long time. You know, one of the things that these activists do, is specifically the wolf activists, they try to humanize these wolves as if they're like, oh, brother Ernie got trapped on the outside of Yellowstone, and now that whole family is grieving, and they're in this state of the whole family of wolves is breaking apart, and they're all going to die and starve because they're not working together because one got trapped out of 12. And like, if you go onto some of these like activist forums, you can read through the comments, and people like genuinely believe that that's what happens, that you're disrupting the family dynamic, and it's making it so that they can't effectively hunt and they can't survive and blah blah blah. They're humanizing it, and that's the problem when you get away. Again, I'm not trying to preach to anybody, but I tend not to argue with the Bible. The Bible says it. We are supposed to manage these animals, and they were put here for us to manage and for our consumption. And we need to be good stewards of these animals so that there's animals in the future for more of God's children. It's not that hard of a concept, but when you start like humanizing these animals and acting like one species has this higher spot on a pedestal than the other species, and that's all that matters, and my emotions about that particular animal outweigh all the science, all the data, all the reality that is out there available, that is a serious sign of immaturity. And that's what a lot of this that kind of defines the left. It's a very emotional based. We've all heard it. The liberal white women, they're out there running around in droves, and they're kind of stirring up a lot of this, and that's what these wolf activists are mostly made up of. And it is extreme emotion. It is extreme emotionally driven. Am I saying that right?
Emotionally driven thought. Yeah,
emotionally driven thought that is just not based in any place that is any sense of reality. And so it's really frustrating though, because they could take that emotion and they could channel it onto a Facebook ad and put this really sad picture of a grizzly bear getting picked on by humans or whatever, and say, you need to donate money to save these bears so they can start living in Northern California, and we could put them there and they're going to thrive and there's not going to be any conflicts and blah, 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 blah. And some lady at home is watching that or seeing that on Facebook, donating her hard-earned money foolishly, because especially the wolf ones too, by the way, they really kind of do the whole Sarah McLachlan type kind of emotional triggers to get these people to donate money to save wolves that just simply don't need to be saved. It's insanity. It's insanity to me. And I don't know how we overcome it. Do you have any thoughts as to, we talk a lot of these problems on this show, but like, what are some of the solutions? Is there a way we could emotionally market to those same groups of people to counter that wrong messaging that they're getting from these leftist activist folks?
You bring up a very valid point. I mean, I think there's an opportunity there for us as wildlife managers, as proponents of our way of life, to pull at the heartstrings of the same constituent. And I think it's hard for people like us to do that, because you're really digging down emotionally. Maybe it's hard for us to articulate that. Is it? Maybe it's not. Maybe I'm speaking incorrectly, but I feel like it's important to have articulate spokespersons to be able to convey that message in such a way that's palatable to those kinds of people, to the emotionally driven type of person. But I think there is opportunity for it. I really do. Why wouldn't there be?
I think there is. And there's, everybody gets emotional. Everybody lets emotion drive them at some point in their life. I mean, I get emotional talking about this stuff, and you could tell some of the stuff that comes out of my mouth is emotionally driven. And so it's not like they're to blame just for that. Where I fault them is everything is emotionally driven, and they're raising millions of dollars and funneling it to places out of this emotional, irrational response to predators. And honestly, it's ripping people off. People are donating lots of money to like these anti-trapping organizations or these pro-wolf organizations or Save the Grizzly Bear organizations. The grizzly bear is what, 6 times surpassed what it was legislated or stated to be on the endangered species list, somewhere in that neighborhood. I haven't checked that number recently. They don't need saving. They don't need your money donations. They don't need any of that. And so there's got to be a way that we can rationally put that information out there, because it's really hard to counter emotional arguments with logic, because logic is boring, right? Logic is boring. People don't, you get on TikTok, whatever. I don't get on TikTok. I'm saying that just because I hear it all the time. TikTok, right?
TikTok. Yep.
TikTok. Yeah. It's the same with like Instagram reels. The ones that are really, viral or whatever, non-hunting related, are usually the ones that are very emotionally driven in one way, shape, or form. Maybe it's a political post about abortion. It's emotionally driven, and it's this big deal, and it's going viral, all that kind of stuff. But if you come back with a logical argument, that's boring, and people aren't interested because it doesn't have that triggering emotional effect to it. And so that's where we have to get creative, I think.
Exactly.
I just don't have the answer as to how to do that.
Yeah, no, I think something that, there's powerful ways, there's tactics when it comes to marketing to pull at heartstrings, right? And so you have to understand who you're marketing to. And so, yeah, you have to, okay, let's say we got to get emotional with it. And so how is hunting emotional, and how is wildlife management or of predators emotional? I mean, there's ways to do it if we want to sit here and brainstorm ideas, and you could show a newborn calf being ripped from the hind end of its mother by wolves, and we can get emotional with it, and it's reality too. We're not even
we don't have
anything.
to make up the emotion.
No, exactly. We're not making anything up. And so, Jim, maybe that's what it is. Maybe people need to see that. Maybe they need to see the harsh reality of nature and be like, you know what, guys, there's a better way. And I think you could weave in the biblical aspect of it. It's our duty as stewards of this land to manage animals, and that just doesn't mean killing animals. And that's one thing that I like to say as a preface when it comes to like why I love elk hunting, because the foundation of it is I love elk and I love animals, like from, as Brian says, every fiber of my being. But I love animals. I was an animal lover as a kid. That I used to raise chickens and ducks, and bears would come in and eat them all. And they're crying. I'm 12 years. I'm crying. I love animals.
Me too, man.
Yeah, and but here's the thing: is being involved in wildlife management is a beautiful thing. It allows you, like, just being involved, and maybe this is the emotional part of it, is being involved in hunting and harvesting and providing. Is what deeper can a human really partake in such activity when it comes down to surviving on this earth? What's something more intimate than that? Probably nothing. Especially,
I can't think of anything.
Especially in modern society, right? And so yeah, I think those are some of the things that we need to really touch on and to really drive home when it comes to being emotional and talking to this constituent.
Those are some really good points, man. It reminds me, I was listening, I don't know what podcast it was, but Bobby Kennedy was on a podcast recently. What one was that? It's going to drive me crazy. I think it was Sean Ryan. Anyway, it was one of the recent podcasts he was on. He was talking about how fundamentally cooking your own food at home is has all these psychological benefits. Like it's this ritualistic traditional thing that humans are connected with each other by doing, by cooking at home. It's healthier, saves you money. and then that ritualistic kind of tradition part of it is really psychologically beneficial to humans, male or female. So when you add on the layers of primal normalcy to the human, condition of, we went out there and we harvested that elk and we brought that elk home and we cut it up ourselves and we put it in our own freezer, and now we're making elk fajitas, whatever. That is fulfillment. That is fulfillment. And that is a way that maybe it could register with the non-hunter, so that, not trying to make them hunters, but make them understand and even call out this cottage industry that is animal activism, so that they are on our side with that. And they say, you know what? The hunters have had the reins of wildlife management for many years now. And if you look across the board, there's a lot of success stories out there. We've also screwed some things up, but as a whole, there's a lot of elk out there. There's a lot of mule deer out there. Mule deer are struggling, but there was a time when it was worse. There was a time when the whitetail population was a tenth of what it is now. Same with the turkey population. They didn't come back because of PETA or the Humane Society of the United States. They came back because of people with vested interest in their well-being, because they rely on them for their own fulfillment and consumption. And that's, I don't know how else to put it. I think that's a way we could relate it. Everybody can relate to that. Just like whether you support Trump or not, you can't argue with Bobby Kennedy that cooking has psychological benefits. Cooking in your own home, your own food. I think it's really important.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. No, and I think too, just kind of fishing off that thought, is that, what did you say? There's 2% of the population that are vegan. So this is a message that would resonate with 98% of the citizens of the United States when it comes to, okay, harvesting your own meat. Because if 8% of the people aren't vegans, then they're eating meat. So they have to confront the reality that somebody is killing their animals for them.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, there's an argument that I could be cowardly, right? If you, so you're telling me that hunting's not okay, but you're okay with somebody else killing your animals for you and then you eating them because you don't have to think about it, and you can wear your leather shoes around because you don't have to think about it. Your hands aren't bloody, so you're exempt from the whole thought of it. And so
you've got the moral high ground because you didn't physically do it.
Exactly. And so I think just bringing the reality to the table and then tying it together in an emotional way, I think could be very effective. And what person that has value, that has integrity, is not going to want to jump on board with that, of harvesting their own meat and providing for their family. I mean, I would think in the United States today that if you have any level of integrity, that's something that you're going to at least listen to.
Yeah, I think so too. I think, you know what hunters should do? Maybe we could head this up, Dan, but I think that we should create almost like a council of hunters with different, regional, wherever they're at, or maybe different backgrounds, maybe some bow hunters versus rifle hunters, maybe some trappers, but like some kind of council that we get together and we come up with some of these solutions and talk about what we could do to counter some of these. Because honestly, I believe it when I say, what is the name of that group? Montana Untrapped, or
Footloose Montana.
Footloose Montana. And there's one in Wyoming that is not trapping related. It's a wolf group. They're out of Jackson. What is the name of that one? Anyway, they're ripping people off. I mean, they are ripping, by asking for these donations, they are ripping people off. I don't know how they're remaining a 501c, other than now I see I should just learn from the Somalians and start my own 501c and retire.
Yeah.
Who said that? Anyway, but if we had this council, the thing that sometimes I get antsy about is I know as hunters, we all talk about all these problems all the time, but like we don't take action. There's like no action items at the end of these discussions that we could look at. And I think that would be something and I'm spitballing here, just like a council that got together. Hey, what if we raised a little bit of money to create like this really high production Facebook ad and have the money to put it as, like in my roofing company, for example, I do these paid ads on Facebook to get my ad in front of a lot of people, and they work really well, actually. I get a lot of work out of them. And so like something like that, where we're putting it in front of people that are non-hunters, they're not anti-hunters, but they're non-hunters, but a quick little 30-second, hey, this is the truth behind hunting and harvesting your own meat, and this is why we do it. And so, here's some reality for you, kind of in a way that would be acceptable to them. I don't know. What do you think? Is that dumb?
I'm sitting here firing off ideas in my head as you're talking about this on, commercials or, what we could do as far as a campaign goes. And I think it's great. And just imagine if we had a budget to get this in front of the mainstream and get it in front of people and pull at heartstrings and show nature as reality. And then the depiction of like how clean a harvest from hunting can really be and how beautiful that really is when it comes to nature and the involvement of it. And I'm sitting here thinking, I saw this video the other day on Instagram, and it was a grizzly bear chewing on this yearling calf elk. And this elk, her eyes are wide open, and
I saw that video.
Yeah, and like just chewing on this elk. And then you think about the beautiful death of a big bull elk with a bow, the quickness, the lethality, the lack of suffering, the lack of pain, how clean that's worth celebrating, not the actual killing something. And I think that's a big thing that is misconstrued too, that we have to really be wise with how we celebrate that, or at least portraying that to the public, is that when I'm sitting there doing a fist pump and going, yeah, baby, it's not because I just killed an animal. I don't like watching an animal die. I don't, but I know the reality of life and the reality of hunting and nature is that there is death. And when what I'm celebrating in hunting for me, and I know you're the same way, a lot of us are wired the same way, we're celebrating a quick, clean, painless death type of kill. Like that's what we're celebrating. That's what's beautiful. We're taking this animal's life in the cleanest way that this animal could possibly die in the course of its life, from being birthed to passing because of disease or old age, or being killed by a predator
on the side of a highway because it got hit, and it lives for 48 hours after that. And it's okay to also say, I celebrate for those same things. It was a clean, quick shot. It died. I had, well, I won't get into stories. It just, when they go down quick, that's a celebration in itself. But it's also okay to be celebratory from a standpoint of, I just worked my tail off to get myself into a position to get an arrow into a 700-pound screaming bull elk. That is my primal innate nature, and I just succeeded at it. And I succeeded at something that most humans on the face of this planet will never experience. They won't even experience the pursuit, let alone the success of that. The death part sucks. Yeah, it does. But that animal, he didn't live on some overcrowded, dirty, muddy farm getting fed these weird hormones and pumped full of chemicals, and then finally having a rod shoved up his. And I'm not throwing rocks at that industry, but that industry could get cleaned up, and there's a lot of ranchers that are doing it right.
Yep.
And a great example, Dan, is my daughter Shiloh just killed a buffalo a little over a month ago on this regenerative bison ranch right here by home, at home here. And I'm going to their ranch on Friday to record a podcast with them to talk about the regenerative way that they raise these bison on this private ranch, and how healthy and happy these animals are until they get to a point in which they need to be managed throughout on that system. By managed, I mean we go kill them, and I paid money to put I don't know, 500 some odd pounds of meat in my freezer, and it is fantastic.
Bet.
That's the important stuff. That's important conversations and important things that people need to be aware of. So, yeah man. Well, I say my buddy Mike from Howell, him and I talked one time about, wouldn't it be great if we could come up with enough of a budget to put together a really good 30-second Super Bowl commercial pro hunting?
Yep.
I mean, it would take, I looked it up. It's like $7 million. We'd have to
Yep.
come up with $7 million. But I mean, if all hunters pitched in, there's roughly 10 million hunters. If all hunters pitched in $1, that covers it. And we could do one heck of an impactful Super Bowl ad to counter all this negativity and bad press that hunters get from the people that control the narrative, because they're simply more emotionally involved in their cause than we are.
I think it's a fantastic idea. It really is.
All right, let's head it up. I'm going to head it up, man.
Yep.
All right. Well, Dan, it's always a pleasure getting you on, man. You're always fire. I really appreciate it. I'm trying. I know it's towards the end of the day here. Get you out the door, and I really appreciate you joining me. Do you want to tell everybody where they could find you? Any videos coming out on off the grid, or drawing a blank again?
Yeah. Beyond the Grid. Yeah. So
Beyond the Grid.
yeah, doing a ton of things here at Eastman's. The deer and elk collectives, we've pushed those in the past, but those can be found on eastmans.com. I'm still writing for the magazine, Eastman's Bow Hunting Journal, the Hunting Journal. And then, of course, appreciate the plug earlier on Life of the Bow Hunter podcast with Brian and I. We get on there every other week and have great conversations pertaining to bow hunting and life. And yeah, Beyond the Grid. So our new season of Beyond the Grid is going to start releasing the beginning of July. So we have a couple months still. We're editing our episodes, a lot of elk hunting, a lot of great stuff from this 2025 season that's going to be released, and that can be found on Eastman's YouTube channel.
I really wanted to talk about your season, because you did have a heck of a season. I didn't mean to cut you off there, but I wanted to talk about that, but we kind of ran it. We'll have to get you back on. I'd love to get you on for a School of September this summer. I'm reorganizing all these. Go.
Yeah, no, we would love to. Yeah, had a great season. Great content, a weird year of elk hunting, but yeah, that's a whole nother podcast for sure that we can touch on later.
Man, it was kind of a weird elk season for me too, but I learned a lot. It's not like I learned a lot. I debunked a lot of theories that I thought were true, and I found them to be old wives' tales. But again, like you said, that's a whole other conversation. So,
Yep.
Well, cool deal. Guys, for those of you listening, Dan's Instagram and everything will be in the show notes if you want to check it out. Definitely, Dan is one of the most lethal and effective bow hunters that I know. Really important if you strive to be a really good bow hunter that you follow. Give Dan a follow, because he loves teaching and he's really good at it. And so that said, thank you to Precision Pay, Easton Archery, Browning, Mystery Ranch, and Loophole Optics. Thank you guys for supporting the sponsors that support this show. They're the ones that make this possible. Dan, thanks again, man. It was a really good conversation. As always, I enjoyed it.
Me too. I always enjoy being here. Thanks for having me.
You made it. That's the end of the episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please make sure you're following us on Instagram at The Western Huntsman, and write us a good review at Apple Podcasts. Thanks, guys. See you next time. Stay Western, and I'll see you